Hi there, Dr. Gary here on the road. We sell dental practices nationwide. We are dental practice brokers. I was a dentist for 25 years, now doing the dental brokerage for 16 years. Today's topic is buyer of a dental office makes the wrong and worst choice we have seen in 16 years. What a mess. We'll get into that. As you know, we have 10 employees, 2 CPA accountants, marketing director. We do have a great team. In fact, I just got back from the scouting out on a 3-week cruise in South China Sea. And my team really took over. I'm very proud of them. They were able to handle it, and I was doing all the emails I could during the day and text messages. It just didn't have the phone. My staff took it over. So we have a great team for you. It's just we're not a mom and pop organization. Now, everything you're about to hear is for informational purposes, entertainment, it's not legal advice. All right? You can reach us at 201-663-0935. Just give us a call. Be happy to chat and give you some free advice, too. Website, dentalpracticeguide.com or nationwide dentalpracticebrokers.com. So feel free to call us. Now, if you have a practice that is over $1 million, 4 or 5 operatories or more, willing to stay on for at least 3 to 5 years, maybe a candidate for one of the DSOs. So give us a ring about that. They often pay our commission, so there'll be generally no commission to you, and we can pick and choose the best DSOs for you. As you know, a little shakeup going on in DSO world with one of the largest ones having trouble, 300 offices, and it can happen. But we could guide you through that maze, and they'll often pay our commission. And while we're talking about large practices, if we are selling your practice and it sells for over $1 million, it closes for over $1 million, we will often reimburse your legal fees based on some minor criteria, such as you have to use a dental attorney, well recognized, and so forth. But we've done that many times. Now, let's get into this now. This is a colossal mistake this buyer made, and this is an educated buyer. Buyer of a dental office. I just can't believe they made this mistake. I was like shocked. So it's a mess. I'm trying to help them. They called me. I was not the broker involved in the deal. I'm coming in the back end because they are looking for another practice. They want to dump this one. So here's the story. Obviously, we changed some of the information around to maintain privacy. I'd sold Doctor a couple years ago, a nice practice, and they turned it around to $1 million practice in a suburban, urban area. Did very well. And with that, they developed a path to success. They know what they're doing. They have a pathway to it. So they assumed if they bought another practice not too far away, which had similar characteristics to the one I sold them, that they could just reduplicate their formula, duplicate it again. But I wasn't involved in this deal. So here's what happens. They buy the practice, and it was up in a kind of a rural area, but it had high visibility, super high visibility. But the practice was predominantly some type of union type practice with very low fees. But they got a lot of new patients per month, over 50 new patients per month, but the growth still wasn't high. I mean, it didn't make sense to me when I found out what was going on, and they asked me for my help. Apparently, I don't think they had the right information. They did know it was a lower socioeconomic group. They did know the majority of the patients had this low fee dental plan. Now, the broker, I don't want to say who it was, doesn't matter, is souping them up, tell them, oh, you better grab it now. It's going fast. We got all kinds of people calling. I'm like, I don't know about this. I'm hearing this story. First of all, the rent was 21% of the gross income. You got a problem. You got a problem right there. You're not going to have cash flow because the practice grossed under $400,000. So you got a cash flow problem right off. If your rent is 21% of your income, it doesn't cash flow. And the bank's probably not going to give you a loan. Here's the problem. The broker convinces them to put a non-refundable deposit. That's like impossible. You can't make a non-refundable deposit. What if you make a deposit on something and the building burns down? How could the deposit be a non-refundable? What if the buyer gets disabled? Or what if the buyer passes away? How could you make something? We never do that. We never soup up the, we never soup up the buyer. So you got to buy now. We just don't do that, okay? And I guess this broker souped them up. It's going fast. It's a height item, but calls are coming in left and right. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Here's the worst part. They pay close to a little over the gross income on a practice that has all lower socioeconomic insurance plans, some union plan. It was a really bad plan. Now, something like that is a 50% sale at max, not over 100%. It's like, what are you doing? The buyer made the mistake of thinking they could duplicate their formula again, but they never thought about the cash flow. You got a lower fee plan, and you got rent that's 21% of the gross. Like, what are you thinking? You got that monkey over your head, and they justify it by saying, look how much it would be to build a practice from scratch. Yes, but if somebody's going to build a practice from scratch, they're going to choose the location they want and the exact equipment. For example, I do like natural wood on a cabinet. A lot of young buyers don't like it. They want Formicas, stainless steel, and glass, and maybe a white cabinet tray. They don't want that wood. You may think it's beautiful. They don't. So you could never just say that, and then the office is depreciated anyway. I'm sure the equipment was older, so you can't use that. You can never use the adage, oh, it costs so much to buy a practice to build a brand new one. Oh, you better buy this now because just for the facility alone is worth it. Ridiculous, okay? A buyer that's going to build a practice from scratch is going to build it the way they want. So anyway, getting back to it, we had everything wrong with this. So they've only owned the practice for 4 months, and they're calling me like, we got to unload this. I'm like, unload it. You're underwater. What were you thinking when you gave the non-refundable deposit? Didn't you get in touch with your attorney and said, well, we didn't really think we needed the attorney at that point? He said, no, that's what the attorneys are for. And you could have called me before you did this. This was the worst purchase I've seen in 16 years. They did everything wrong because they based it on the fact that they were successful at their other practice and they could just duplicate the formula. But everything's wrong. How could you pay over 100% for a practice that has union low fee plans? How do you do that? You're not thinking. If you had consulted the attorney ahead of time, they would have told you. But by the time you consulted the attorney, you're already into the deal. You already made the deposit. This is like the worst purchase I've ever seen. And I, as a broker, there's no way. I mean, you want to buy a practice that is 21%. I'm telling you, 21% of your income is your rent. You better be really careful with that. And here's the best part: the seller financed the office for them. Yeah, you know why they financed the office? Because the seller probably knew if a bank got a hold of the terms of this deal, they would never finance it. So there's a reason for all this, and I think the broker should have stepped up to the plate and said at least a disclaimer. This is what you're getting into. This practice doesn't cash flow. This practice rent is 21% of the gross. You're underwater on day one, and I think they were not being truthful to the buyers that the phone is. I got all kinds of phone calls coming in. Yeah, bull. You got phone calls coming in because you didn't disclose that it was a lower socioeconomic area. It was lower fees, and we just don't do those. I am too busy to do that. Besides, what's happening to us is we're getting recycling repeat business from people we sold practices to 14, 15, 16 years ago that want to retire. and they're coming back to us. So I know we're doing something right. I mean, read our testimonials. We are not going to let our buyer get into something like this. And if something like this has happened, we'll print out a disclaimer like, we think you're making a mistake. I think you're overpaying for this. I think that your rent is very high. You're not going to have a cash flow situation. I'm going to tell my buyer that, because I don't want my buyer having trouble. I don't care. I'll bring him to another practice. I'd rather bring my buyer to another practice than get one that's underwater. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't somebody to buy this, but somebody's going to buy this practice that's underwater. They're going to give him pennies on the dollar. I'm talking, I don't know, 30 cents on the dollar, maybe. And maybe that person wanted the space and their office just burned down or something like that. But, oh, man, this is a nightmare. Now, we're going to try to help them because we feel obligated as a previous client. I was not involved in this deal, but this is a nightmare deal. Underwater, it's a mess. I cannot sell this practice. Tell them right now, I can't sell it. And 105%? No way. Practice is worth 30, 40%, maybe. Under the circumstances, the rent is too high. I can't even get a buyer. I can't put my buyer in that kind of situation. I had to tell them, I can't sell the practice. I don't know what the answer is. I think they're going to have to build up the practice, get the numbers up, and then do it to justify. You're going to get to justify a rent like that? You're talking $500,000 plus minimum to justify that rent. And that's what you've got to do. So this is a mess. We'll guide them along. We would never let them go into this. I wouldn't let my clients get into this kind of mess. But it's something that you have to be careful of. This is why you need attorneys and brokers. You do it on your own. You think you're a hot shot because you have a successful practice or you're a successful dentist and you have all the answers. I don't think so. You just got to be careful with these things. We're here to help you. And I guess that's why we're doing well in business. 16 years, going strong, having a great time. Just a side note, I think in 2 years we're going to do this South China Sea and/or Australia trip. So get ready. We're going to have a very highly informative, educational seminar. As you know, we're now accredited for Academy of General Dentistry. We're accredited to give continuing education seminars. This will be a wonderful, wonderful seminar. You'll learn a lot at the same time. You'll see the world. It'll be a great opportunity and tax deductible. All right, team. I don't know what's going to happen with this couple. I feel really bad. But we're going to try to help them out, even though they're not our client now. We didn't put them in this deal. But you got to be careful out there. You got to be careful. Because you're a successful dentist, don't think, I can handle anything. You got to be really careful with that. All right, team. We got a new newsletter coming out soon. And give us a ring if you have any questions. Take it back.